I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's October 14th, and we have a lot to talk about. Tomorrow, October 15th, is the first day of open enrollment for people who rely on Medicare, the healthcare.gov marketplace, or their state's health insurance exchange. About 400,000 people living with MS rely on Medicare for their health insurance, and that would include their prescription drug coverage. Some rely on Medicare because they've already celebrated their 65th birthday, and others may be younger than 65, but they're already receiving Social Security disability benefits, which automatically qualifies them at any age for Medicare coverage. Now, I know a lot of people tend to go through open enrollment on autopilot, assuming that the health insurance they had last year will continue to serve them well next year. Please keep in mind that policies change, premiums change, deductibles change, physician networks change, and prescription drug formularies often change. Several Medicare Advantage plans are changing this year, and some are even being discontinued. If you're living with MS or really any chronic illness, you literally can't afford to be on autopilot when it comes to making decisions about your health insurance. Those decisions can end up costing you a lot in time, money, and heartache. A few minutes spent carefully considering next year's health insurance plan is the best investment of time that you can make. For those of you who aren't covered by Medicare, but you're getting your health insurance through the healthcare.gov marketplace or through your state's health insurance exchange, you're probably among the millions of Americans who have already received a notice of a significant increase in the monthly premium you'll pay in 2026. That huge increase in healthcare premiums has gotten a lot of recent attention in our nation's capital, where, at the time I'm recording this episode, the shutdown of the federal government is about to enter its third week. And getting past all the finger-pointing in Congress, here's the real deal on those insurance premiums. The premiums for health insurance purchased through the Affordable Care Act Insurance Exchange have been kept low thanks to enhanced premium tax credits that are being allowed to expire. Those enhanced tax credits were first introduced in 2021 and then extended through the end of this year by the Inflation Reduction Act. These enhanced tax credits increase the amount of financial assistance eligible ACA marketplace enrollees received, while making millions of middle-income enrollees newly eligible for these subsidies. Since these enhanced premium tax credits were introduced, enrollment in Affordable Care Act marketplace health insurance plans has more than doubled, from about 11 million to over 24 million people. And with these enhanced premium tax credits set to expire, health insurance premiums in 2026 will actually double for millions of Americans. As a result, it's expected that about 5 million people will become uninsured. There's a bit of a ripple effect here, as this change in insurance coverage will affect healthcare spending and demand for uncompensated care. Now, these are services that healthcare providers still deliver, usually in an emergency room setting, but these services aren't reimbursed by anyone. This means that in addition to leaving millions of Americans without health insurance, the failure to extend the enhanced premium tax credits will leave hospitals, physicians, and other providers with an estimated $32 billion in lost revenue and a $7.7 billion increase in uncompensated care next year. So there's a multi-billion-dollar economic loss that may not be apparent at first glance, but will certainly have a very real economic impact. And while the government shutdown has focused our attention on the impact of those expiring enhanced premium tax credits, the shutdown may also affect people living with MS in other ways, and I want to be sure you know about these in case they affect you or your family. The good news is that Social Security payments, including retirement benefits, supplemental security income, better known as SSI, and Social Security disability insurance, better known as SSDI, will all continue. However, reductions in staffing will create additional delays in processing new applications or in answering phone lines. Now, during the last shutdown, eligible households continued to receive monthly SNAP benefits, although there could be some disruptions there. And the Special Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as WIC, has already dipped into a special contingency fund that was expected to last for a single week during this funding lapse. Now, some states may decide to use their own funding to keep this program going. On October 8th, the IRS announced it was furloughing about half of its workforce. The furloughed workforce includes call center employees, IT workers, and most headquarters staff. So give yourself a lot of time if you have to call the IRS with a question. During the last shutdown, the FDA paused most of its food safety, nutrition, and cosmetics activities. It also stopped all safety activities such as routine inspections, some compliance and enforcement activities, monitoring imports, notification programs, and most of the laboratory research that's necessary to inform public health decision-making. Specific to the MS community, right now the FDA has been reviewing the application to approve tolebrutinib, the first in a new category of brain-penetrant disease-modifying therapies that's been shown to be effective in slowing disability progression among people with non-active secondary progressive MS. That approval decision was expected to be announced on December 28th of this year. Whether the shutdown will impact that work or the scheduled announcement date is still unknown. When it comes to research, the National Institutes of Health is implementing a contingency staffing plan that retains about a quarter of its staff during the shutdown, primarily to maintain operations at the NIH Clinical Center, which is a hospital run by the agency. Other NIH employees will still care for lab animals and perform routine upkeep for infrastructure and facilities. All basic research at the NIH has stopped, as has all grant-making activities, including payments for ongoing research grants, and no new clinical trials are going to be launched at the clinical center. No training of graduate students or postdoctoral researchers will occur during the shutdown, and all scientific meetings and employee travel have come to a hard stop. In total, 32,460 employees across the Department of Health and Human Services will be furloughed during the shutdown, and on Friday of last week, several thousand of these employees were simply fired. Finally, Medicare telehealth waivers and acute hospital care at home programs expired on September 30th. It's believed that these programs will be extended once Congress passes a funding bill. But for now, doctors are not going to be reimbursed for telehealth visits delivered to Medicare beneficiaries in their homes, effectively canceling telehealth for anyone on Medicare. I try to share news about developments that are going to make life better for people affected by MS. These changes clearly don't meet that criteria. But amidst all the partisan finger-pointing and blame-shifting, it's important to me that you understand what things in your life may or may not be affected by the federal government shutdown. I'm hopeful that by this time next week, I'll have better news to share with you. Thinking about a brighter future, you have an opportunity to impact that future for people with MS. The National MS Society is leading the Shaping Tomorrow Together initiative that's going to culminate in an interactive, patient-focused drug development meeting with the FDA that's going to be held in person and live-streamed on Zoom. This meeting will ultimately lead to the publication of a Voice of the Patient report next year, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The process actually begins by having as many people affected by MS as possible share their experiences by taking the Shaping Tomorrow Together survey. This is an online survey that should take you about 45 minutes to complete, and once you've completed the survey, you can enter to win one of 10 $50 Amazon gift cards. I'll add that by completing this survey, you'll be adding your voice and your experiences as someone affected by MS to all the other information the FDA will ultimately receive. This is your opportunity to be part of this very important conversation. You'll find a link to the survey in today's show notes, and I'm inviting each of you to click on that link, complete the survey, and help the FDA better understand the things that are most important to people affected by MS. Once you've completed the survey, be sure to register to join the National MS Society on October 29th for the live stream of the Shaping Tomorrow Together meeting. This meeting will be an opportunity for the MS community to share their lived experiences with the FDA staff in charge of regulating drugs, people working at life science companies, healthcare professionals, and MS researchers. During the meeting, the MS Society will share the initial survey results and dive deeper into what it means to live with MS, including hearing from you about the daily impacts of MS, how you manage and treat your MS, and what matters most to you about current and new therapies. This is really a historic opportunity for the MS community to come together to make a difference in future MS treatments. I hope you'll complete the survey and then register to join the live stream of the meeting with the FDA from your home or office on October 29th. You'll find both the survey and the Zoom registration links in today's show notes. This is the meeting that can influence future MS therapies. And one of those potential therapies that are in clinical trials right now is CAR T-cell therapy. In CAR T-cell therapy, blood is taken from the patient or from a healthy donor, much as you would facilitate a blood donation. This blood is sent to a lab where the white blood cells, or T cells, are separated out and reprogrammed, fortified to carry a receptor designed to fight a particular condition. Now, this receptor is known as a chimeric antigen receptor, and since scientists love their acronyms, it's reduced to CAR, or CAR. Over the course of several weeks in the lab, these fortified T cells multiply until there are millions of them, and then they're reintroduced to the patient through an intravenous infusion. Janisch-Hanzlik lives with MS, and she's a participant in one of the clinical trials evaluating the safety and efficacy of CAR T-cell therapy for MS. Jan's already received the treatment, which is a one-and-done treatment, and in a moment, she's going to describe her experiences in this clinical trial and share exactly how she's doing since receiving that treatment. After hearing from Jan, you can keep up with her on her MS with Moxie Facebook page. In a moment, you'll hear my exclusive interview with Janisch-Hanzlik. This past June, Janisch-Hanzlik became the first person in the world to receive allogeneic CAR T-cell therapy to treat MS. Welcome to the podcast, Jan.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Before we get to your treatment, I'm hoping you'll share some background information with us. When were you diagnosed with MS?
I was diagnosed 7 years ago. It was 7 years in August.
And at that point, were you prescribed disease-modifying therapy?
I was prescribed Gilenya by my neurologist who had seen me. And within a month of even taking it, I had just really declined quite a bit. And so that's when he referred my care over to my current provider, Dr. Zabad.
So between then and June, what were those circumstances that led to your treatment?
The only medication that I really was ever on, DMT-wise, was Ocrevus. That was the only medicine I'd ever been on.
We've been following clinical trials that are underway to test the efficacy of CAR T-cell therapy as a treatment for MS. Doctors already know the therapy is safe. It's already being used to treat various cancers, but many scientists believe it could have a wider application. Just to remind our listeners, allogeneic CAR T-cell therapy uses T cells from a healthy donor that have been genetically modified to target and destroy a protein that lives on the surface of B cells. And those are the immune cells that trigger MS inflammation. Just like stem cell therapy, the theory is that once those B cells have been destroyed, after just a single treatment, The immune system will reset itself and behave in, I guess, what we can think of as a more normal, healthy way. There are also ongoing clinical trials looking at using CAR T-cell therapy to treat other autoimmune conditions, including myasthenia gravis, lupus, and systemic sclerosis. So tell me, Jan, what was the procedure for introducing these modified T-cells into your system?
I had to be off my DMT treatment for 6 months. And interestingly enough, I was just right as this clinical trial opened. I was just at that 6-month mark. So that is what got me into being in the first place for it there. And in order for me to undergo this, I met with the oncologist and my neurologist. They went through and explained the entire process of what I was going to need to do. And would I be willing to undergo this, knowing what the side effects are? And I said that yes, I was. So then after agreeing to do the study, I then had to make sure that I qualified to be in the study. So there's a lot of different qualifiers, and I don't know the specifics of them, but your EDSS score, it had to be within a certain range. And I believe you had to be like at 6.5. You could not be any higher than 7. I do remember that. You had to time with the 9-hole peg test. You had to be within a certain amount of time. The same with the 25-foot walk test. There is the SDMT test that you had. All of these different tests you had to do, and you had to make sure that you were within the guidelines or the parameters that the study had required. And I was within all of those requirements. And so then I had to undergo some blood testing. I had to do an echo, a brain MRI, the CSF for the lumbar puncture. I do remember that there was a requirement that you had to have at least 1 or 2 O bands, if I'm not mistaken. And that was, I recall my doctor saying that not everybody has those, I terrible at saying this, oligoclonal bands. And so that was one of the things that she was actually talking with the study about, was making sure that in the future that people with, no O bands findings could actually be in this study as well. So after we got all those results back and I was within the parameters for that, I then had to undergo chemotherapy. I did 3 doses of chemotherapy. My last dose was on a Friday, and then I went in on that Monday. And again, they had me do a full neurological check, making sure that they had all their ducks in a row, that, I was still within those parameters for the neurological testing, that is. And then that morning, I was actually in exactly the same place where I get my treatments at, my IV infusions. I was expecting, honestly, a full day process, thinking I'm going to have, 500 mils or a full liter of this infusion going in. But believe it or not, this infusion was just a push. It was within a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. It was a slow push that they put in. And I have to tell you, afterwards, I didn't feel, anything. But the following day, I was in the hospital for an entire week. The following day, I think I was just running on adrenaline, honestly, because I thought, I'm feeling so much better. But now looking back, it really had to be adrenaline. And with it, I was there for the entire week. When I was there, they were doing neurological checks on me every 6 hours. Since my discharge, I am currently on an antibiotic. It is twice weekly, 2 times a day. 2 times a day, twice weekly. And then I'm on an antiviral twice a day. And I'm on all those medications for a total of 6 months. after that, I don't know if there's parameters, if they draw blood to see, like where my white blood cell count is at. I'm not really sure what will determine or make them decide to continue or to stop. I just know for sure I'm on them for 6 months.
And let's see, it's been about 4 months since that initial treatment. How are you?
It has.
How are you doing?
I am doing great. In fact, I was talking with my doctor. She periodically just calls and checks on me now that my checks are not as frequent. So after the 90-day visit, my next visit will be in 120 days, and then 150. So just once a month is kind of what it will be after that. And she had called me to see how I was doing, and she even said she was just surprised that the improvement that I've had. She was expecting improvement, but she didn't think that she would see as much improvement that I've had in such a short amount of time. And as far as I'm doing absolutely amazing. I used to have to take a nap every day for 2 or 3 hours after my work schedule. I work from home, and, I would watch that clock. When it said 3:00, I was laying down. And now it's very uncommon if I have to lay down and take a nap. My energy level is just really improved. I have not had this energy level since before my diagnosis. And it's just unbelievable how much more energy that I have to do things. And at first I thought I had some energy, but I've really noticed quite a bit of energy. Like where now I'm making dinners again every night. Where before it was, before this infusion, I was just looking for something in the freezer just to heat up. And now I have the time to sit there in the kitchen and make dinner. I will say I was cooking something about 2 days ago. And while I was in there, I was over the stove, and I did notice I was starting to overheat. So that has not changed my intolerance for heat. But the energy level has really increased. I've also noticed a really big improvement in my gait. My 25-foot timed walk test, before the one that my doctor had actually count, I was at 17 seconds. The one that is in my documentation for the clinical trial. And the highest one I've ever had, though, was 21 seconds, but 17 is what's in the trial. And I just, at my 90-day visit, I was just down to, it was like 7.5, 7.4 seconds. So it has really improved, more than half. Another improvement that my doctor had saw was my reflexes have improved, my lower extremity reflexes, and then also my sensation, where before I had very impaired sensation on my feet, and I was able to feel both of them. So that was very exciting to see the improvement there. Things that I've personally noticed is my vision, where I have diplopia, and so I have to wear my glasses because they have the prisms in them. And I noticed that I'm not having double vision like throughout the midday. I'm fine. I wake up and I have a little bit of the double vision in the morning, and then as the evening goes on and my eyes are getting tired, that double vision does come back. But midday, I'm not having any double vision. Another improvement that I've noticed is sensation with going to the bathroom. Before, I was having a lot of hesitancy with urinating, a lot of double voiding, and I'm now where I go in and I have full sensation. I have no problems emptying my bladder, and so that's been a really big improvement for me as well.
That's quite a report card. That's pretty amazing. We're talking over Zoom, so our listeners won't see it, but I understand why you have a smile on your face.
Yes, you can. So you can see, I really am just like, I'm not just saying it. There really has been such an improvement. I also was using my cane. Your listeners can't see this, but you can see my walker over here.
I can.
And I've got my canes over there on the floor. I haven't had to use them at all. I do keep a cane in the car so that when we're leaving, I have a cane, going to the store, or going over to someone's house. But within the house now, I have not been using a cane or a walker at all.
Well, I hope they continue to collect lots of dust right where they are.
Thank you. Yes.
So, were there any side effects to the procedure? Anything you noticed?
No. I know that sounds absolutely crazy. And that's really what worried me, because there are such side effects. Some of the side effects that, they discussed with me were, just an allergic reaction, just sensitivity to the drug, the cytokine release syndrome, CRS. And what that is, it's a release of chemicals from the cells during the infusion. And this can cause things like nausea, headache, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, kidney damage, and rash. And I did not have any of those side effects. Another side effect is the ICANS, and this is immune effector cell associated neurotoxicity. For those who are listening, no, I do not have this memorized. I'm actually reading this off of my little paper that they've given me here. And what that is it's a group of symptoms that can occur following administration of T-cell therapies, like Azer-cel, caused by the release of inflammatory chemicals from cells following the infusion. And the most common is headache, disturbance of brain function, tremor, shakiness, dizziness, confusion, trouble with loss of speech, trouble speaking, anxiety, and it can be life-threatening, but it is usually reversible. I didn't have any of those issues. And then there's the graft versus host disease, and that can include skin rash, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, yellowing of the skin, and abnormal liver function, eye irritation. And again, I didn't have any of those issues. I really was surprised because my MS journey has been, as we all have, such an interesting and individual story to tell. I have had some interesting things happen outside of this study. I ended up having Stevens-Johnson syndrome from medication that was tried for me in regards to my migraines. And so I really just thought my body system is going to find some way to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in here. And it did not. I did not have any complications at all.
Well, it sounds like they picked the absolute perfect person to be patient number one in this trial.
Thank you. I will say we did run into an adverse event. So after having my spinal tap done at day 90, I did develop a migraine after that and ended up having to go to the hospital a couple days later for a blood patch. And so that is the one adverse event that I have had thus far.
But it sounds like the adverse event was not necessarily connected to the therapy, but rather to the spinal tap.
That is correct. Yes. Yes.
As I mentioned at the top of this segment, CAR T therapy for MS is still being investigated, and you were patient number one in this clinical trial. What would you say to someone who's listening to our conversation and maybe thinking about participating in a clinical trial?
I would make sure that you understand what the benefits and the risks are to the clinical trial that you are participating in, because things may not always go as smoothly as planned. I mean, my journey from having this has been absolutely wonderful, but that doesn't mean that everybody's journey will be exactly as pristine as this one has been. But I would just make sure that they understand the side effects, and if they're willing to take that risk, I would encourage them to do so. For me, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was going down this was I had to think of all of those pioneers who were there before me to get us up to the medications that we're on currently. And many of them are still here that I can thank, but so many of them are no longer here. And I would just love to thank them because it was, because of their courage that we've been able to get to where we are, and the advancement with the medications that we have thus far.
Well said. I'll just add that thanks to your courage, we're a little bit further than we were before June 4th of this year.
Thank you.
Janisch-Hanzlik, I want to wish you all the best as you continue your MS journey. I hope it's every bit as smooth as it's been lately. And thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you. I look forward to maybe getting to talk with you again in say a year, and let's see where I'm at, and have things progressed? Have they digressed? Only time will tell.
Well, you have yourself a deal. I'm putting it on my calendar now. So we're going to talk again next year.
That sounds great. I appreciate talking with you.
That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/424. You'll find that link in today's show notes, so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or a text. Next week, it's going to be my pleasure to welcome Dr. Bruce Bebo back to the podcast. Bruce is the Executive Vice President of Research at the National MS Society, and following up on the conversation I had with Bruce right outside of the conference center just minutes after ECTRIMS had ended, Bruce is going to take us on a deeper dive into some of the most important research presented at the largest MS research conference in the world. This is an episode you won't want to miss. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.